People estimate the total economic loss to be in, 35 billion or more than that. Most prognosticators, which I think is the best way really to describe them, think that the impact on the insurance industry is actually going to be relatively modest. This slide that we have up comes from Towers Watson. It's from last August, and it puts the estimate in the range of $4 to $6 billion. That pales in comparison to some of the catastrophes like Katrina and those sorts of catastrophes that we've dealt with in the past. So the headline would be that this particular spill really won't be a watershed event for the insurance industry. If those predictions are right, it makes it about the 20th largest insured loss in terms of, major catastrophes that the various organizations track. But I think it obviously doesn't include in those big estimates a lot of the smaller types of claims that you're going to see out there. The claims by homeowners, the claims by individual businesses, and all of that. And it's very, very hard, I think, to get any kind of firm numbers right now because, as we talked about, or we had up a slide that we didn't really talk about, the latency period for this is so long that it's really very hard to tell what the claims are ultimately going to be and what the impact will be on the industry. So most interesting, really, is BP. Largely has no liability insurance coverage at all. It's self-insured, but as everybody in the room knows, that basically means you don't really have a whole lot of insurance coverage out there. It has a captive called Juniper Insurance Company. That company has $6 billion in capital, and it provides whatever coverage is going to be available for liability claims against BP. But significantly, that coverage has a $700 million per event or per occurrence cap on liability. So no coverage in the traditional markets, all captive insurance, and significantly no reinsurance whatsoever for Juniper Insurance Company. And that's why on the earlier slides we saw some of these lower numbers about the potential impact to the insurance industry coming out of this whole disaster. So, if you add up all these numbers, you're talking roughly $3 billion in cover that's out there against potentially 35 or more billion in losses. Of this $3 billion number, $2 billion is in liability cover. There are not a lot of lawsuits out there like we saw filed immediately after the Katrina lawsuits, for example, where you had individuals seeking to tap into the insurance cover. What's being fought right now is really a consequence of the fact that BP is largely not covered for liability claims. And so you have BP asserting that it is an additional insured under coverage that was available allegedly from Transocean's two insurers, the primary insurer being Ranger, and then underwriters at Lloyd's, and a whole subscription list of insurers who provided the excess cover. And BP is claiming I'm an additional insured because Transocean had an obligation to indemnify me under the drilling contract, and I'm an additional insured for liability claims against me. The insurers are coming back and they're saying, no, you're an additional insured only to the extent that you have an indemnity under that drilling contract. And the insurers claim, and they have the two insurers, Ranger and then the Excess Group, which is led by underwriters at Lloyd's, have both filed lawsuits. Those are the two lawsuits that were made part of the MDL.